Hi, I'm John Rofrano, Senior VASST Trainer here for Boris TV, and welcome to the Boris Continuum Complete for Vegas Pro Training Series. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the Beat Reactor. If you've ever tried to sync any effects to a musical beat, you know how much work it takes, and you're going to love the Beat Reactor. As you can see here, I've got this flashing effect going on with this video, this person dancing, perfectly timed to the music that they're dancing to. Now, the Beat Reactor isn't a separate effect in Bcc 8. It's brand new with Bcc 8, but you won't find it in the list of effects because it's built into other effects, much like the motion tracker. So the first thing you have to say to yourself is, what is the effect that I want to apply to my video? And then does it have the Beat Reactor embedded in it? And in this case, we used Bcc Color Correction. So let me go over to the video without anything on it and show it to you. Right, so, there's music, he's dancing, but the video's just not doing anything, right? So we're going to go over to our plugin manager under BCC Color and Tone, and I'm going to take the color corrector. We'll drop that on, and we'll notice we've got brightness, contrast, hue, things you expect to see in the color corrector. And what I thought we could do is take the brightness, right, and use it as a flash transition. In fact, you can actually have it flash up from, black to white. Right, so we use this flash, this brightness as a flash, and when I come down to the bottom here, you'll see there's a pixel chooser and a bunch of other stuff. We've got the Beat Reactor as a new option. So I want to use the Beat Reactor to automate the brightness and create this flashing to the beat. The first thing you have to do is enable the Beat Reactor. Now you notice you get a message on the screen. No external media files been selected. Please use the external file button to choose an external source. So I click on the external file button, and where are all my WAV files, right? The first thing you'll know is that the Beat Reactor works on audio interchange files. Now this is the native format for a Mac, but not many Windows users are going to have these. So let me show you how to make one with Vegas. It's really, really simple. We just double click the area that we want to affect. If there was more audio tracks and we just wanted one, I could solo this track. So that's an option. And then I would just come up here to Render, click the render button, and you'll notice at the top of the render list, right, we've got this whole list of renderers in Vegas. Way up at the top in the A's is the audio interchange file format. And I'm going to select PCM stereo because this happens to be a stereo file. Make sure that it's going to go into the folder that you expect it to be in, give it a name, and then click render. And it's going to go off. It's that fast, right? I'm going to open the folder, and now you'll see here's my Beat Reactor demo that's in this folder. So let me go back, click on external file. Now you'll see I've got my Beat Reactor demo AIF file in here, and I click open, and I'm ready to go. The first thing you'll notice is this little waveform, this bar graph on the bottom. Let's play the music and watch it move. So as you might imagine, what this is doing is showing you the intensity of the wave based on frequency. So the lower frequencies, the bass frequencies are on the left, the high frequencies are on the right. And you can use these frequencies to determine what's going to be affected with the Beat Reactor. The next thing we'll notice is there are three parameters, A, B, and C, that we can affect with the Beat Reactor. And this is going to be different for each of the plugins, what the parameters are. So I'm just going to down-click on this parameter A, and you can see that I can affect the brightness, contrast, hue, saturation, or mix with original. So those are parameters that are on the BCC Color Corrector, and I want to select the brightness. So I'm going to do nothing else but select the brightness and then play the file. Let's see what we got. Wow, that's a lot of brightness. Now, something else you might notice, and let's see if we can get to is that there's this little bounding rectangle here. That is the area of the wave that is being affected. So, and as a matter of fact, on the bottom we've got these audio graph options, and we can make this even more pronounced. Right, this graph here is just, kind of an overlay, and we could make the graph even hotter if we want so we can see it better, or we can make it less. So I'm just going to bring it up a little bit so I can see it better. And now I can see these boxes. What I'll do is open up the audio apply options for option A, go down to the bottom of these options where it says sampler. The sample type is a percentage of the box, so this is the box, and what's going to happen is the percentage of how much these bars grow into the box is going to affect the parameter that I get out of it. I'm going to open up my sample corners, upper right and lower left, and now I'm going to make them much smaller. So you can see the video being affected immediately as I bring this down, right down to here, and maybe just these last two bass frequencies, and let's watch this. Now, still a bit much, so I'm going to bring it up. So I only want it to actually flash when these guys get into this box. And I'm just going to I'm using my cursor key here just to see how hot these get. So here, these are way over the box. That tells me I should probably have the top of the box up here somewhere, right? And actually we'll include that one because that one looks like it's a pretty good bar. So I'm going to move it one bar over and a little bit up. And so now I've got this area in here. All of this is going to be ignored. Just that area in here is going to affect the video. So let's watch that. So that's a little better, right? We're fine-tuning it here. We're getting a little better. Let me show you what all these other parameters do. The first is the effect on the parameter, and it defaults to add to value, but it could replace the value or subtract from the value. Now, if we go up to the brightness, and the brightness is 0, add to value and replace value are going to do the same thing. Because whether I replace it or whether I add to 0, I'm still going to get the same value, right? If the value is 20 and I add 20 to 0, I get 20. If I replace 0 with 20, I get 20. So the only time you really need to use add to value is when you've already selected a value, right? That's what you want your default to be. And then add to value will now add to this negative 26 as opposed to replacing it, right? So that's kind of neat to understand. I'm just going to leave it at 0 for now. And we'll come back down. And so I can replace the value I added. I'm going to replace the value. And then I have my output range. And it defaults to custom, which is what I usually leave it on. You can, however, have it go 0 to the current value or current value to 0. There's a bunch of things you can select. But then this min and max get grayed out because they're going to be determined by the current value. If I keep them as custom, now I can do things like pretend that this is the initial brightness level, which is the min, and I can make that go all the way dark. So I can say, that's my minimum, right? And then my maximum is at 100. And now when I play it, watch what happens. So I'm getting more of a flash, and I'm gonna show you how we can fine tune that flash in a minute. There's a fall off, which is one of the fine tuning parameters. Right now it's immediate. So what's happening? And let me bring this a little bit smaller. I'm gonna do a RAM preview so we get real time here. So I'm using Shift B to do a RAM preview, and now let's watch it. So you see I've got this nice flashing effect, but it's immediate, all right? It's either on or off. And what I want to do is maybe make it linear or quadratic. Let me show you how linear looks. You can see right away this is getting a lot smoother. It's not that harsh on-off. And the quadratics I like because they hold it at the top. So what they do is they're more kind of a bell-shaped curve thing. So where you're going to get more at the top, and then it'll hold the value a little longer, and then it'll either fall off hard or fall off soft. The other options are sustain, build up to max, and build indefinitely. We're going to use those in some more advanced tutorials. So right now I'm going to use quadratic hard. Because the beat is kind of quick, I need to lessen the fall off time so that it falls off a little bit quicker. So I'm just going to back that down a little, and then we'll do Control B again. And then we'll take a look at what we've got. So that's looking a lot better. Now, if I wanted to use the original one, so that's kind of the flash. If I want to use the original one, I can keep it at 0, right? What you saw originally, and we'll RAM preview that so you can see what that looks like. And we'll have that for you in a second. And again, you can control how much this is being affected. If you think there's just still too much flash, you can bring this up and bring it over a bit. So it's just going to be those last 2 bars. And we can make it fall off a little quicker. And we'll take a look at that one. That should be good. So that's kind of smooth. Then when you're all done, all you have to do is click off this Beat Reactor graph. So I'm going to open up the actual Beat Reactor itself. You'll notice that you could save presets for the Beat Reactor. You can have a watch folder instead of always selecting that one file. You can use both channels in a stereo mix or just a left or right. And you can actually delay, because sometimes you want what happens to be delayed a little bit behind the beat so that it's kind of reacting to the beat. So you can even add a little bit of delay. And then, of course, we can turn this graph off, and that gives us the final mix. So let's do a final Shift B and see what we have here for this one. It looks like it's really flashing nicely. And again, you can fine tune that by going to the output max, maybe not make it as bright, maybe make the min a little bit darker than normal. You could sit there and play with it a bit and get some nice flashing effects going on. But think about how long this would have taken if you were doing keyframes in Vegas, right? Because what we normally would do is we would come up here, we would say animate the brightness, and then, try to calculate the downbeats, every so many seconds, and then, put a flash, the brightness up every so many seconds. It would have taken you, 20 minutes, half hour, whatever, to kind of go through, an entire music file and do that. With the Beat Reactor, you come here and in a few minutes, you've got that thing going. So let's just watch this one last time. So that's as easy it is to use the Beat Reactor. Now let's do something a little bit more advanced and use 2 parameters. So I'm going to come up here and show you the next one. Now here's one where I have a title. So what I did was I rendered out my flashing video in the background because I like the flash. And I wanted to add a title over it that was, just kind of doing something other than sitting there, right? So I've got a title that's actually expanding in the horizontal on the bass drum and in the vertical on the snare drum. And for that, I used a piece of media that's actually an acid loop. So if we look down here, I've got this acid loop, and I'll show you the original with no title. And so you can see these are the bass drums, then a snare, then a bass, then a snare. Now, one of the neat things about the Beat Reactor is that you don't have to feed it the same file as the music file. This loop happens to be at the same tempo as the music we were listening to previously. And so I can feed a loop of just the bass and snare drum to the Beat Reactor while I have the rest of the music playing for my audience. And I can have the Beat Reactor react to something totally different. In fact, let me just show you how you can modify what the Beat Reactor sees. So I'm going to go back over here and just show you this other one one more time. I want to put on the graph to show you how we can affect this loop. Because right above these graph options are the audio spectrum options. Now this is going to affect the file, but of course since you're listening to the file on the timeline, it's not going to affect the music on the timeline. So, if I was trying to get some effect and some of this music was getting in the way, I can go off and say, hey, bring the treble all the way down, and the treble's gone. Bring the mid-range all the way down, and the mid-range is gone, right? Bring the bass all the way down. All I've got is sub-bass left, right? So I can really fine-tune this file. And if I wanted this bass to go all the way to the top, I could boost the sub-bass, right? So I've got a lot of control over the wave file that I give to the Beat Reactor so that I can have it just listen to pieces of the music. So if there's other things in the music recording that are getting in the way, you can get them out of the way. Okay, let's go back to our title and let's show you how we did this. I'm going to right click in here, and I apologize, this is going to go off the screen. I'm picking Insert Generated Media, and I'm going to insert a legacy text because that's where I happen to have my my preset that I like here. I have this Boris Continuum preset that I really like. And I'm going to change this to be Dancing Machine. So I've changed my text, and all it does is sit there right now, right? Not doing a whole lot. So once again, there's no Beat Reactor in the Vegas text. There's no Beat Reactor that's a plugin that I could just drag and drop on. So how can I make this text bounce to the beat? Well, remember, what you have to do is think about what is it that you want to do to the text and find a Boris plugin that does that. And so that's what I've done. I've gone to Bcc Perspective, and I've got DVE Basic for these digital video effects, and I drop DVE Basic on there, and we'll open up the geometry parameter, and notice we've got a scale. So there, I can scale the text up and down. Now you'll notice that the X and Y are locked together, and I don't want that. I want to do them separately, so I'm going to unlock that so that I can scale the X, and then independently I can scale the Y. So let's see how this is done. I'm going to keep them at their 100%. We'll go down to the Beat Reactor, turn it on. We'll go get an external file. In this case, I'm going to get that acid loop that I have. And now I've got to tell it what audio options I want to use. So I'm going to go to option A and say I want to scale X, and we'll just double click and watch it. So there it is, scaling in the X, right? But it's also scaling on the snare drum. We only want it to scale on the bass drum. So I'm going to move my timeline down so you can see where these beats are. So here's the bass drum, here's the snare drum. So I'm going to go to the bass drum and open up my options for audio option A, open up my sample corners, and immediately take the sample down to just the bass drum. So I'm bringing this down. I'll bring it up a little bit higher, you can see in here, and let me play that. So I'm getting a nice, nice vertical, horizontal movement, but on the bass drum. But notice what's happening here when I get to this snare. That snare's affecting it. Why is that snare affecting it? Well, that snare happens to have a little bit of energy down here in the bass, in the bottom end. So what I'm going to do is move this up a bit so that that energy isn't caught. So now, when we look at it, right? So I'm only getting this area in here. I'm not getting anything else. And again, you notice how immediate that is because there's no fall off. So I want to add some fall off. We're going to add our quadratic hard fall off to that and watch it. Now you can see it's a lot smoother. Matter of fact, this is probably a good one to show you what linear looks like. There's linear. It's just a real smooth where quadratic hard holds it out a little bit longer and then brings it in. Quadratic soft brings it in a little bit softer. And we can take the fall off time and bring that in a bit so that it falls in totally before the snare comes. And I think we've got that. So now we can go off and do the snare drum. Snare drum is kind of the same thing with audio option B. We go to unused, we say I want to scale on the Y. Now in this case, we get another rectangle here, another box. So I go down to my sample corners and I park my timeline indicator over a snare drum hit. I see that the energy's in the middle there. So I want to move this over and maybe up a bit. And let's take a look at that. So getting good, but you'll notice something that's happening here. On this bass drum, there's still energy in the mid-range here in the bass drum. So I want to bring it up more here. Bring that rectangle up, and then we'll just bring it up into here. And let's watch that. So we're getting the bounce up. We're not getting enough bounce up. And so I'm going to increase my max. And I also want to take and make that a quadratic hard and make the fall off a little less. And let's watch it. And if it's still not, high enough, you can go in and take the apply strength and just give it a little bit more strength, right? And make it a little bit more pronounced. And so let me go up to the Beat Reactor itself. Let me turn off the graph. And let's watch that. And there it is. So I've got my title, expanding on the horizontal on the bass drum, expanding on the vertical on the snare drum, something that would have probably taken a long, long time had I done this with just keyframing. So that wraps it up. Hopefully you understand the Beat Reactor a little better. In part 2 of this episode, we're going to take a look at more advanced Beat Reactor functions using 3 parameters. If you need more information, drop by borisfx.com. This is John Rofrano for Boris TV. Until next time, thanks for watching.